Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Namaste Lake Chapala, to the experience of Namaste, which we are all fully engaged in, wherever we are. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in Timbuktu or sitting here at Namaste. The experience of Namaste, which means I bless all that is. I see everything as it truly is. And in doing so, I know the same for me. I know who I am. I'm able to see the divine spark that's within me, always and forever. And as I said a moment ago to all of those who are gathered here in the Zoom room, this week we're going to be looking at divine foolishness. How the foolishness of the world is really the wisdom of God and the other way around. What seems to the world to be foolish, when we give everything, when we completely devote ourselves for something that seems, so unattainable, unattached to our modern lives, to say that I want only the peace of God. I'm willing to risk and give everything so that I can have that peace and that experience within me. That may seem foolish from the perspective of the world. People would say, well, you're denying what's really happening. No, well, we're not denying what's really happening. We're denying what isn't happening. And in doing so, we're coming into the direct experience of what is and what has always been. And that may seem foolish. Being back here in a little tiny enclosure for a year may seem foolish. Many of the things that we do will likely seem very foolish from the perspective of the world, and that's okay, because all the great mystics and saints were looked upon as fools in the beginning until people began to realize what was really happening. So, that being said, did I stop the screen share? Okay, I did. All right, so I would love to begin today with a reading that I just finished a few moments ago, something I wrote in this Impersonal Light collection that we've been working on now for several months. So I'm just going to invite you to just relax and open and allow, and we'll use this as our launch pad, and then we'll see where it takes us from there. So here we go. A question. Do you believe it's possible for God, or the source of all life, to be lonely? Here's what I mean. You are the very will of God, expressed perfectly this and every moment. You are the very will of God, expressed perfectly this and every moment. But your refusal to see and experience this leaves God lonely for itself. When you deny what is true, then you must attack, because you feel threatened by something or someone you believe to be outside you. When you deny what is true, that's what's going to happen. And since God is everywhere, at every moment, you are really attacking God, which is another way of saying, guess what? You're attacking yourself. When you deny anything, any aspect of reality, anywhere, you're really attacking yourself. But this can change in an instant through your decision to see God in everyone, simply because God literally is everyone you meet. I think it's interesting that it doesn't say God literally is in everyone you meet, because that would seem almost separate. There's you and then there's what's in you. What it says is God literally is everyone you meet. This is the truth that you have denied until now, simply because you refuse to believe that God is within you now, or that you are God right now. You've refused to believe that until now. You believe you've committed some terrible sin which has separated you from all that is. And so you must push God away. And the easiest way to do this is by pushing away anything or everything that God created. Thus you have isolated yourself from yourself with a capital S. And God is lonely for and as you. So give up this insane idea once and for all. Then you'll realize that you never left God and God never left you. And since you've never been truly separated from God, loneliness becomes an impossible dream. God could never be truly lonely for anything, because in God's mind there has never been a separation. It's only in your mind. But you begin to realize just how powerful that mind is, how much energy it can create to make something that's impossible seem very true. Just let it fade and it is gone. Open your eyes, Holy One, and see where you are and where you will always remain. So this is very interesting, because it begins by saying that God can be lonely, then it ends by saying such a thing is impossible. And what really is true is that God can seem very lonely through and as you, because you've pushed it all away and you've isolated yourself. And because you are one with God, because that is a literal truth, then that experience of your own divinity, which is what God is, has been pushed to the side, isolated, seeming alone. But such a thing is impossible. So what we begin by saying, well, this is what it is, ends up being, in the end, completely impossible anyway. So why are we even trying? What's the point? The only point is for the return to love, for us to realize this, and in doing so, to turn back around and realize what is and what has always been true, that you never left heaven. It's just the same as saying that the dream that you had last night was never really true. It certainly seemed true from the perspective of the dream. I can remember little bits and pieces of my dream last night. I remember I was working on something electronic, and I spent hours and hours trying to figure out this little electronic thing, which is odd because I know nothing about electronics, which is probably why I couldn't figure it out. But then as soon as I woke up, I dismissed it. I didn't try and continue to figure it out, because I realized it was just a dream and that it never was real. I don't have the ability to build some advanced electronic device, just as you don't have the ability to separate yourself from all that is. So the only thing left is to say, okay, that dream's gone. Let's just go back to what is true. Let's rest in God. Let's allow the light of God to possess and extend from us and enlighten the whole world. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's the thing about this foolishness, is it doesn't have to make sense. The important question is, did you feel something with the understanding that God is within you now, and that God is literally everywhere? And that's not a concept. This is a true reality. And when you hear that, do you feel something begin to sparkle inside you? And if you do, follow that sparkle, even if it means looking foolish. The greatest among us have looked foolish, and that's okay. So, I'm going to turn it over to Vicky now and see what practical light she can bring to this lesson.
Good morning, Jimmy. Happy Peace Day. This
Happy
is International
Peace Day.
Peace Day. So because what but God's fools are the peacemakers of this earth. So we're grateful to count ourselves among them and live in the ways of peace. But I have a very practical experience to give. Too practical, a little too close to home. But you're talking about God being lonely, and the Christ in us is our divinity. And the only time I experience that loneliness truly is when I have separated from a brother. And I had an opportunity to witness myself doing that just yesterday. We had a big family powwow. And I was not as aware in the moment, but very soon after. So as soon as we go into fight or flight, as soon as we go into defending ourselves or attacking or trying to explain, we have left the holy presence of Christ within ourselves, and we are lonely for that. And when we do that, we are attacking a brother because we're responding to the mask, the image, rather than the light of our brother. And at that point, to be God's fool, the only way out is to allow ourselves to be where we are and to turn our full attention. That's the place where our eye gets single, and turn within, and at least do this in the presence of grace, of spirit, of the Holy Spirit, of however we understand God's presence to be as part of us, and witness it. Because once we've dropped into the chaos, we have attacked ourselves. That's what separation is and what loneliness is. And we can't evade it. What does he say in the lessons? You can't conflict, you can't avoid it, evade it, pretend it's not there. You have to look it right in the eye. You have to get very practical, look it right in the eye and say, here I am, separated, attacking myself and everyone around me as if there's somebody else. Help, help. And as soon as we get a moment of sanity, and thank you, God, to learn how to be God's fool and catch that moment of sanity, and like Christina's story of the eagle with the crow, just rise in consciousness. That's the ascension, to rise in consciousness to that inner experience that we are not alone, that we are that light, not that we are with that light, we are that light. And so is our brother. And in the willingness to see, and that's where this step in time that's very practical comes in. There's a willingness in time to stop going through the loop in our mind. Teddy and I were talking about how our mind will bounce like a loop into he said, she said, I could have said, da 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 da, and get out of the loop. So the practical fool for God leaves the loop. That's what I've been doing all day and last night. I leave the loop, but it was an instant to instant function and attention, the willingness to leave the loop and ground ourselves in that presence, in that invisible, holy presence that is what we are, but it has to be experienced. And the willingness to experience sometimes has to be enough. And that's really all I'll say for that today. But it becomes very practical, and all of us understand that fight or flight syndrome. It's like everything all of a sudden responds. And if we're going to be the peacemakers of this world, whether it's a name that triggers it, if it's a situation that triggers it, if we, like Lisa says, watch our minds like a hawk and catch it, be with it, don't evade it, don't avoid it, be with it and choose differently and turn within and make that choice. Nope, I'm not going to go into that loop of either politics or world stuff or sister stuff or any of that stuff. I belong to the love that is the answer for everything, no matter the problem. Love is the answer. Love is our nature. That is what our divinity is. And the willingness to turn there gets us there.
Wow.
Amen, brother.
Amen, sister. The loop, I love this loop that you talked about. And for me, like if you guys were back here in the anchor hold with me, I talked about this a little bit, I think, yesterday. What you would see me is doing this a lot. I'll be just standing there. Because, as I said yesterday, whenever, this is how I'm watching my mind like a hawk. Whenever I find myself judging a brother or a sister, projecting onto them, I realize that it's just the projection of my own self-hatred. And what do I need to give me in that moment? Love. And so it's an instant reminder, and it feels good at the same time. It brings me back to me, right? This has nothing to do with that person or Donald Trump. I mean, every time I think of Donald Trump, okay. Every time I think about any of that stuff, I just have to give myself that love. So maybe that's a very simple, practical thing that all of you can try. Just watch your mind like a hawk. When you feel that loop, just notice it. And the best way to end it is just to give yourself a hug and love
Good
yourself,
one.
because that's where it's coming from. See, even I have
You
practiced.
know, oh yeah, that's a mudra. Isn't that what they call sacred movement?
Sure.
That's a beautiful mudra, Jimmy. Not just a chant to get out of the loop, But the actual physical thing, great. I will do that from now on. I'm going to start right
It
now.
really works. It's just like,
It
okay,
does.
that felt good. Thank you.
Yeah.
How about Teddy? Do you want to share anything?
Oh, where'd it go?
Oh, hang
One
on.
second.
Here he is. There he is.
So, sometimes my mind is really, really simple, and I just look at words, and words really do tell me everything. So, as you were talking, I was just looking at the word alone, and A-L, and the way we spell L is looks a lot like one. So, alone is A-L-O-N-E. All one is A-L-L-O-N-E.
Oh,
All
good.
you do is add a second one, and you're all one. You're not alone. So,
Join.
I mean, it helps me to keep things that simple. That's all I can say, because I can make anything complicated if I wanted to. But you're either alone and there's only one L, or you're all one and there's two L's. There's two ones together, and you're all one. That's all I can say.
That's all you need to say. And it's so, it's like the jester who keeps everything simple. And that's that divine foolishness. The king always has to have the jester around to remind them. And they do it in simple, funny ways. And I think that's what this week is going to be dedicated to, is
Right.
how can we reveal this in simple little ways like Teddy just did. That was beautiful. Thank you. And just little things like just give yourself a hug. That's all you need to do. Whenever you find yourself judging anyone or anything, give yourself a hug, because it's always just a projection of your own self-hatred. Thanks, Teddy. Thanks, Vicky. I think I saw Christina in the room as well. So, Christina, you want to share some of your foolishness with us?
Good morning. Yes. Pretty much everything that I do is foolishness because it doesn't go with the realm of human striving. I don't know if anybody's ever noticed, but when I share, it's never about a me. And that is completely not normal in the realm of human mind existence. You spoke of something very powerful, Jimmy, and you used the word denial. And this is a place I find where so many of us can be caught for a period of time because we go through stages of our evolution, of our awakening. And at some point, one of those stages was that I needed to stop denying everything and I needed to feel everything and find the good in it and allow myself to love myself through it and go find my inner child and hold them. And, this whole realm of psychology that we've all gone through. And so the word denial, I've found, can be very triggering for some people. And that's where there will be an end to the path because they're not willing to stop perpetuating the need of the person. The need of the person needs to make everything okay and to heal it. And the reality is we're already whole. We don't need any healing. And so one of the things that I find can be so helpful for the people that I work with and has been so helpful in this journey is the difference between denial and discernment. Because the wise of all time, every enlightened master who's ever walked this planet has come into the recognition of their own power to ignore the fear, the worry, the doubt, the illusory self. And in order to do that, we have to turn our attention away from it. And some people may call that denial, but it's actually discernment. We're recognizing that it happens. We recognize there's a story. And then we allow our attention to come back to what is real. So I encourage the pondering, the contemplative meditation with denial and discernment. We have been given this awesome power of discernment. And as long as I am needing to make Christina okay, as long as I'm having to shift her reality, I'm still stuck. I'm still disconnected from the current within that knows and sees and feels the perfection of everything that's happening, and also the lack of importance of whatever's going through the mind. Mm-hmm. And the mind doesn't stop. You know, I will still be driving down the road and somebody, you know, I live in LA, somebody will race past me or cut me off, and I'm driving in my state of presence. I'm completely with what's happening now. And the mind will still have a thought. It's like way out, you know, miles in the background, but the mind will still say, idiot. You know, it happens. The difference is that there's no attention that goes to it. It's just an activity that has a habitual response from a habitual upbringing, from a habitual environment. And it still plays itself out. It's just, it gets slower and it's farther and farther away from where the focus is.
Right.
So, you know, I could go into, oh my gosh, you know, I'm judging somebody, and that's just, you know, I have to change that. I have to shift it. And that's just like more mental masturbation. I don't have to do anything with it. All I have to do is stay present, to stay connected in the current. And if I take myself away to the thought, then I'm no longer resting as the self, as God, as the pure expression that is one with all life form, animate and inanimate. So may we recognize our own power of discernment and choose wisely what it is that we give our attention to. And Vicki, you shared something about fight or flight, and this is such a powerful point at which we can catch ourselves and shift back into the click, you know, the active merging, recognition of the current. And there's something I'd like to read. It's short and it's on fear, because all human greed, all human insanity, all human anger, all human judgment is sourced from fear itself, which only can live in a mind that's separate from its source. This is Khalil Gibran, of course, beautiful wisdom. It is said that before entering the sea, a river trembles with fear. She looks back at the path she has traveled, from the peaks of the mountains, for long winding roads crossing forests and villages, And in front of her, she sees an ocean so vast that to enter there seems nothing more than to disappear forever. But there is no other way. The river cannot go back. Nobody can go back. To go back is impossible in existence. The river needs to take the risk of entering the ocean, because only then will fear disappear, because that's where the river will know it is not about disappearing into the ocean, but of becoming the ocean.
That's beautiful.
That is what we are doing as we allow ourselves just to be. It's getting caught in those trying to transform something, trying to come back to allowing our person to feel good, that keeps us actually from the dissolving into what we already are.
Thank you. And by the way, in Course in Miracles language, that denial that you were speaking of, Christina, would be called denying the denial. When you deny the denial, everything that we project here is a denial of what is true. And so when we deny the denial, guess what happens? It cancels it out. When two like vibrations come together, it cancels it out. So that was just another beautiful way of expressing that. So thank you, dear one. Let's go out to the Zoom room and see who out here would like to share anything at all. If you would like to share anything, just raise your hand. Baraka, it's nice to see you with your picture of an early version of the casitas in the back before the grass went in. What was that?
I was feeling homesick.
Well, you can come back anytime you want. Boy, you should see it now, by the way, with the grass and the flowers and the decoration. Amazing.
Well, listen, you guys, Vicky and Jimmy, on my screen, we are right next to each other. And it's so cool because there's a fourth person here right now that it was and it continues to be for me, the epitome of the fool for God. And that, of course, is David.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And our friend David, yes, he had no fear whatsoever about encountering this world with the mind of God. And I learned so much from him. He was my true teacher. Sorry.
And a true fool for God.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Vicky. Thank you. The last couple of nights I was I had episodes in my sleep which I cannot call dreams because they were more real than what I am perceiving here now. And they were all with David. And I don't know why, if there's something specific about this time, this date, something I won't try to, it isn't important. All I know is that David and his blessed foolishness have been inhabiting me for the last couple of days, that and beyond a feeling of being possessed, I am that. And I see that in everyone here, how foolish it is in terms of this world, that we should be thinking that something other than this world might even be possible. What are we? Are we crazy? Yeah. We are, but in that wonderful, holy way. And Christina, I believe you just said, it doesn't matter. None of this matters. I don't have to worry about where I am or who I am or who I'm not. I am not in anything that matters. I am not this world. And now I can just be the fool for God. I can just be David.
Just be the
I
fool.
can and be the fool.
Thank
Vicki,
you.
Jimmy, especially you two, thank you very much for having shared that with me. I really love that you are both the continuing reflection of that in my life. Thank you very much.
Well, I remember very well, must have been 18 years ago or so, when we went out to Peaks Island and netted you, me, David, and Vicky. Like we was like, there's Baraka, get in with the net. And yeah, David, a dear Franciscan friend of ours who was a complete fool. Just one quick story, just to give you an idea. I mean, don't be afraid to do things like this. Let your freak flag fly. In other words, I went to a concert. It was a Christmas concert with David at Harvard or somewhere there in Cambridge, and were you there? And and there was this huge choir, and we were way in the back, and David had a beautiful operatic voice. And usually, in most situations, the audience sits and listens to the people on the stage. But in this particular concert, David stole the show because he's way in the back and he's just singing at the top of his voice beautifully along with the choir. And at first I'm thinking, oh shit. I mean, what are we going to do? I mean, David won't stop. Everyone's looking at us. And finally, people began to turn around saying, you were the best part of the whole show. So live like a fool. Don't worry about anything. As Christina said, nothing really matters. Anyone can see. Nothing really matters. Nothing really matters to me.